Raw salmon is one of the favorite toppings of sushi today, but did you know that it was Norway that introduced it to the masses in Japan? In the past, people in Japan completely avoided having raw salmon and labeled it as a worthless fish. It was actually a government project through Norway that made salmon sushi the top choice in sushi restaurants across Japan today. In this video, we'll find out what the Norwegians actually did to make this happen. Today, Norway is the world's second largest exporter of seafood. Salmon farming in the country started in the 1970s when two Norwegian brothers successfully farmed salmon in open net pens, leading to the first successful generation of farmed Atlantic salmon. This led to more farmers following their footsteps and setting up their own farms. However, by the 1980s, salmon farming has grown so much that they needed a new export destination. In search of a solution, they set their sights on Japan. So why did the Norwegians choose Japan? A few years back, Tore Listau, who was then a Norwegian parliament member, joined the trade delegation to Japan. And during that trip, he noticed that tuna was being regarded as the best fish in Japan. The raw fish market, which has a higher margin, was monopolized by the suppliers of tuna. Sushi-grade fish was being sold at high prices in comparison to salmon, which were only being sold at very low prices. You see, salmon at the time was considered a rubbish fish in Japan, meaning that it had no value. Most of the Pacific salmon that was available in the Japanese market was full of parasites and had to be cooked fully and never eaten raw. This was an opportunity for the Norwegians to offer the salmon as an alternative. Norwegian salmon had a larger size and a higher fat content compared to the Pacific salmon, which resulted in a better taste when served raw. Most importantly, it was free from parasites. The second reason why they chose Japan was because Japan had a huge consumer market for fish. At the time, the Japanese people were consuming 5 times more fish when compared to other countries. The third reason was that Japan at the time was also facing a shortage of fish due to overfishing, stricter fishing regulations, and a rapidly growing population. And as a result, the government was seeking to import fish to meet domestic demand. In 1980, fish farmer Tormod Winkel paved the way for Norwegian salmon exports to Japan, becoming the first company to do so. However, the imported salmon was only being served as fried fish, and export numbers were far from what Norway had desired. The Norwegians would soon come up with a plan to change this. They wanted to convince the Japanese people to accept salmon as a sushi-grade fish, as this was the best market in terms of margins and volume. In 1986, an initiative was launched to do just that. It was called Project Japan. The goal of the project was to promote all kinds of Norwegian seafood in Japan with a focus on raw salmon. They began by changing its name. In Japan, the word for salmon is sake, which sounds similar to the famous drink in Japan. Instead, they opted for the English name salmon, a name that is widely used in Japanese sushi restaurants. The team also tried approaching Japanese importers, but they criticized the salmon for its lack of reddish color, its small head size, and strong fishy odor. Project Japan took a different approach and reached out to chefs, including the renowned TV chef Yutaka Ishinabe, also known as the Iron Chef. The idea was that if a respected professional like the Iron Chef endorsed salmon, it will have a positive impact on public perception. He did agree and endorsed salmon on national television, which did help Project Japan. Project Japan slowly gained traction over the decade. Many Japanese people tasted raw salmon for the first time and were won over. The biggest breakthrough was in 1992, when the team, after years of effort, managed to convince Nichirai, a leading frozen food supplier in Japan, to accept an offer to buy 5,000 metric tons of Atlantic salmon from Norway for a cheap price, with the condition that it can only be served raw on sushis or as sashimi. The results of these efforts were beyond expectations, with Norwegian salmon exports to Japan increasing from 400 million Norwegian kroners to 1.8 billion Norwegian kroners in the years that followed. Over the next decade, salmon became a staple on the Japanese sushi plate. Thanks to the efforts of the Norwegian delegation, this led to a change in one of Japan's long-standing food traditions. Today, Norway salmon is available in sushi restaurants in many different countries around the world. In fact, China has become one of the largest buyers of raw salmon from Norway, and 80% of the fresh salmon consumed in China is served in Japanese restaurants. Salmon sushi may have already existed before Project Japan, but without the Norwegians, it might not have become the famous dish we know and love today.